Hey guys, welcome to my Samoan language instruction on descriptive sentence structure. This video will expand on the last two videos we've been discussing, and if you haven't memorized the descriptive pronouns, you need to do that now in my last video. Assuming that you've done that, descriptive pronouns can only be used as doers, so they can only act as the subject of the sentence. And unlike emphatic pronouns, they emphasize some element in the sentence other than the doer, usually the action. So my descriptive pronouns can only be used as the person doing the action or the subject of the sentence. And they emphasize the description of what's going on or the action taking place. Whereas emphatic pronouns, I can use those as both the subject of the sentence and the object or some other area of the sentence. But they also emphasize the person doing the action. Okay? So if I use the emphatic pronouns as the subject, they emphasize the person doing the action. So that's the difference between the two. Descriptive pronouns can only act as the subject or the person doing the action, and emphatic pronouns can act in any part of the sentence. Okay? And they also take on different word orders. Okay? So emphatic pronouns, if I use emphatic pronouns, they take on tense marker, action, doer, and you can note that in the example sentence I give you. Sa alu au. Tense marker, action, doer. Sa alu au. And if you wanted to say the same exact thing in the descriptive format, you would say it in the tense marker, doer, then action. Sa o alu. Sa o alu. And those both mean I went. The difference between the two is the emphatic pronoun case, you are emphasizing I went, whereas the descriptive pronoun, you're emphasizing I went. So that's the difference between the two. Another thing that you need to know is that when you use transitive verbs with descriptive pronouns, they tend to take the perfective suffix in formal Samoan. So if you wanted to be 100% grammatically correct, if I have transitive verbs and I use descriptive pronouns, I need to use the perfective suffix. So for example, if I said sa o faunga le pene, which by the way is very understandable. If you said this, people would understand you. But the correct way of saying this would be sa o faungaina le peni. And now the reason why you use the perfective aspect in this case is you can see the totality of your action. You can see the beginning and you can see you being done, completed with using the pen. And so that's why you use the perfective suffix in this case. But I can't stress enough, a lot of times the most important thing is to be understandable and to be able to communicate. So if you said the highlighted version on the left, you would be understandable and you would be able to get by. So if you need to stick with the sentence on the left, and then as time goes on and the more comfortable you get with your Samoan, then start to use the one on the right. And the way that you do that is you go back and you rewatch my videos, or you note how people are saying things and you say, oh, okay, they say it a little bit different than I do. I'm going to add that INA at the end, okay? Or something to that effect, okay? Also, a couple other examples, you wouldn't say olea o ta le polo, you would say olea o ta ina le polo, okay? And another example would be olo o mato faitao le tusi and olo o matao faitao ina le tusi, okay? So that's some cases that you'll note that a lot of times you do use the perfective aspect when you have transitive verbs. You don't always have to. Note that the main way that you use the perfective aspect is when you're trying to show the totality. So sometimes it is still appropriate to just use the imperfective suffix or not adding a suffix on at all, and you can still be correct. The way that it's translated is a little different, and we'll work on that a little bit in the future. If anything doesn't make sense, I encourage you to stop the video and rewatch it, and I hope that the second time going through, which I believe it will help clear up any issues that you might have. Moving on, in the last video we kind of learned, or I guess in the last slide even, we kind of learned the basic sentence structure. Okay, that one wasn't completely correct. That one turns into the one in blue. Okay, the difference between this though is that the doer marker E is not used with descriptive pronoun doers. Okay, so if I am using transitive verbs in the emphatic way, I need to use an E that marks my doer, and you can learn that from my video, the transitive video. But if I'm using descriptive pronouns, I don't need to mark my doer with an E, okay? And the reason why that is because my descriptive pronoun and my predicate phrase will separate the subject and the object, okay? So, for example, well, actually, let's just kind of go over this really quick. So, the actual sentence structure when you use descriptive pronouns will be the tense marker, then it'll be the doer or the descriptive pronoun, it'll be my predicate phrase, and whatever comes after that. Okay, let's look at some examples. The way that I would say this in the emphatic form would be sa faitau e ia le tusi, and the descriptive way would be sa ia faitau ina le tusi. Okay, so note when I use my emphatic form of this, I have to mark my doer with an E, as seen here. Whereas my descriptive, I don't need an E right here. I just need to say the descriptive pronoun. Okay, awesome. And the reason why that is because I have a noun phrase doer and a noun phrase done to. In the emphatic form, the E kind of tells you who's the one that's doing it because they're right next to each other. Whereas in this case, my doer or my descriptive pronoun is separated by my action or my predicate phrase. So my doer is here and my my done to or my object is separated by that predicate phrase. And so that's why I don't need to mark it with an E. Okay. Moving on to the next example, olea tausia e ia I lato poloainga, and the descriptive way to say that is olea lato tausia poloainga. And both of these sentences, let me clarify, the emphatic versions and the descriptive version are both correct. You just need to remember when you want to emphasize the person doing the action or you want to emphasize the description. And depending on which one, usually it's probably going to be the description, so you're most likely going to want to use that one. Whereas if you want to really emphasize the person doing the action, then you use the emphatic sentence structure. Another rule is the first person singular pronoun o changes after certain particles. So if I use the tense marker olo'o and I use o, so if I tried to say this, a tense marker, then my descriptive pronoun, olo'o, it changes to olo'o. Okay, it changes to olo'o, and that's something that you're just going to have to get used to. It took a little bit of time for me to get used to because it just seemed a little bit counterintuitive. Moving to the next example, I'm using o again, and this time I'm using se'i. Se'i o turns into so'u. And this will come up again. There's multiple meanings of this. This is also a type of possessive pronoun, but in this case it's acting as let I, or I'm about to. Okay, so se'i is let's and o is I or me, so it's almost like saying let me or something to that effect. Okay, so so'u can also mean let me in a way. Okay, so I encourage you to pause the video and review anything that is needed. Okay, moving on to the key principles. These are things that we should have learned, and I just want to kind of review that right here. So descriptive pronouns are used more often as doers than emphatic pronouns. Emphatic pronouns are only used for special emphasis. So what I want to just add here is emphatic pronouns are only used for special emphasis when they're acting as a subject, okay? And we use those in other cases, such as objects and other places in the sentence. The non-past tense E or the habitual tense E cannot be used with this sentence structure, okay? So I cannot use the tense marker E in this case when I'm using a descriptive pronoun, okay? And we will go over that more in the next video, okay? And with descriptive pronoun doers, the perfective suffix is often added to transitive verbs in formal Samoan. We talked a lot about that in our first slide. And these little things right here, olo'u turns into, olo'u turns into olo'u turns into olo'u. And se'io turns into so'u. Okay? So those are some things that you should have down pat now. And if any of those don't make sense, you need to rewatch the video and hopefully that will clear it up. Okay, so here's some example sentences. He read the book. Okay? So if I said he read the book and I wanted to use the descriptive format, I would say sa ia faitauina le tusi. Alright, that is how I would say that. And we too will prepare the food. Well, my tense marker goes first, so that would be olea, that's the future tense. Then my doer goes next, right? So ta is an example of saying you and I inclusive. Okay, so this is I'm including whoever I'm talking to. Okay, and then my action comes next. That's saunia, and that's the perfective form of that, and le mea I. And the reason why that is because I have both a subject and an object, so I need to, and that means that I have a transitive verb here, saunia, and that makes it so I need to use a perfective aspect. Okay, I am memorizing the scripture right here. Okay, I'm memorizing it right now. Let's say o lo'o, and then I want to say I. Okay, but I changed that to o lo'u o'u. Okay, I am right now memorizing taulotoina mau. Okay, awesome. Moving on to they too have left the house right here. So my tense would be ua probably, or I could use a past tense. Sa would be applicable here. But this is saying they just left the house, and la is those two, and tu'ua lefale is the way that I would end that sentence. Tu'ua is used as the perfective verb here, and if that doesn't make sense to you, you need to go back to my perfective aspect. Okay, moving on to the last example sentence, let me sit in that chair. Okay, so I kind of taught you what let's is. Let's is se'i, usually, okay? But when I throw an O right here, it just changes that into so. Okay, we talked about that, sorry. So let's is se'i, and then if I have an I afterwards, that if the se'i precedes the O, then it turns into so. Okay, so that's how that sentence will start. So, and then my action, because this so takes on kind of the tense in a way, and it also takes on my descriptive pronoun. So the next thing that I use is my verb or my action, which is nofo, ilena nofoa. Okay, nofoa, usually I would use the perfective aspect here, but nofoa just means chair, and there are some exceptions to the perfective aspect, and that's why if you need to go back to that video and review it. So I rarely use nofo, the verb nofo, in the perfective aspect unless it means chair. Okay, so I just leave it as nofo. I use it in the imperfective way this time. Okay, we're going to do something a little different this time. Instead of me giving you example sentences, I'm going to see where your listening comprehension is. So I want you to be able to read this, or reading comprehension, I guess, if you will. I want you to be able to read this and try to translate this paragraph on your own. And I want you to do that now, and so pause the video and we'll go over it afterwards together if need be. Okay, so I hope you actually pause the video and tackled this on your own. If you're not willing to tackle it on your own, you're going to have a hard time learning the language because a lot of it is trying to figure this stuff on your own. So I, again, encourage pause the video if you need to work on this. So let's just go over this together quickly. Every dash, I am kind of hoping that you can figure that part up on your own. So this right here, sa is a tense marker. We should know that as the tense marker. That's a past tense marker. And then I have a vala'au, and it's in the perfective form. So vala'auina. So vala'au on its own it just means call. Okay, so but then when I add the perfective aspect or the suffix to the end, it kind of shows me the totality of this call. Okay, so I can see the beginning and end. The next thing that I have, I have tense marker, action, then doer. So this is actually what is this? This is an emphatic sentence structure almost, but you can still use the you can still use the perfective aspect in emphatic forms. Okay, just what we've learned in this lesson is that usually when you have transitive verbs and you're using descriptive pronouns, you use that as the perfective aspect. But don't forget, you can still use the perfective aspect in the emphatic format. Okay, so this is the emphatic format. So sa varauina Maria. So normally a pronoun would go there, but I'm just using a name. Okay, so I'm using a name, and so after that is ise missiona. So ise missiona, this is part of a prepositional phrase, to a This right here, se, is a determiner. It kind of means and missiona means mission. So this first sentence here means Maria was called on a mission. Okay? So sa varauina Maria ise missiona. So you can see just a perfective little review here. You can see Maria getting that call and being done receiving that call. She opened that call up and she's no longer involved with that call as far as the action of opening it up. She's received it. She no longer has to receive it because she's already received it. You can see the totality of that verb. Okay, let's just move on. So na ia tau nu'u. So na is another tense marker, and that's a past tense. And this is more, if you remember, the na is more of the determinate past. So I can actually see when this is taking place. I can visualize a specific time this is taking place. Whereas the sa is kind of, it's in the past, but it didn't really happen at a certain time and things like that. Okay, so na ia tau nu'u ile intisi ya setema. So you can see right here, na ia tau nu'u. So ia right here is my pronoun, and that is he or she. But Maria is what we were talking about before, so it's a she. We always have to remember the context of what we're talking about. So she arrived, tau nu'u is arrived, and then ile MTC, at the MTC, the Missionary Training Center, ya setema, in September. Okay, so this is how that would be translated. And the reason why I use na here is you can see at one particular moment she came to the MTC in the past. You can visualize that. Okay, so sa a'wa ufa tasi. So this is in the past and it happened multiple times. Okay, so sa a'wa ufa tasi. This is learn or teach fa'atasi. And most likely this is going to be learn because we don't think Maria is going to the MTC to teach. We're thinking Maria is going to the MTC to learn. So this is a'wa ufatasi, together. Fa'atasi is together. And then Maria is who it is, with and her soa. So ma can either mean and or with. And that's something that we'll expand on more, but just so you know that it can mean either of those. So ma lanaso. So with her soa. And I know this lana right here, this lana means her, and we'll get more into that when we get to possessive pronouns. But that doesn't mean that you can't still tackle working on this. Okay, we can still try to figure things out even though I haven't taught them to you. You still need to try to work on things even though you might not understand everything. Okay, you need to put together the things that you do understand. Okay, and then ile vasenga is to the class or in the class. Okay, either or. So it's probably more like in the class, and that's why I don't have the mark right here. Okay, so if I had this mark right here, the glottal before the I, that would probably mean a to or at or something like that. But when I just leave it with the I, it means either on or at or something to that effect. Okay, so then sa la faitauina. So this is my tense marker. Then my doer, this la right here is those two. This is my pronoun. And then my action comes next, faitauina. Ile in the tusipaia, the Bible. And then ma, so then we kind of start another sentence structure right here. Sa, this is past tense. La, those two again. Tauloto ina. Tauloto means to memorize, and then the ina is the perfective form of that. Some scriptures. Okay? They were memorizing some scriptures. Okay, awesome. So then our next thing is sa, that's our tense marker. Le fia fia, that is a negative verb. Okay? You are negating that. And that is le fia fia. They didn't like, or at this point, something didn't like. And then the next thing is the doer. Le soa a Maria. So the companion of Maria is our doer. That whole thing right there is the doer. Le soa a Maria. And then what's next is ile NTC. So Maria's companion didn't like the NTC. Okay? Moving on, so sa ia, this is again she in the past tense. Leifia didn't want to study strong. She didn't want to study hard, okay? And then another, again, we see another pattern. Sa ia, that's past tense, she. Sleeps, or moi with the sa is slept, she slept in the house, ile fale, aso uma, every day. And then we have an and we kind of start our sentence structure over again. Sa le iloa, she didn't know, which ia kind of completes that, she. She didn't know, se mea, a thing or anything in the Samoan, ile fa'a Samoa. Okay? Then past tense, talanoa, this is conversed in the past, Maria. So Maria talked or conversed in the past with the presidente, president of the district, or if you're not a member of the church, the LDS church, itu can also be translated as part or area or side, something like that. But in this case, it's district. Okay. So then sa popole, in the past tense, worried, le presteni. So the president's the one worrying. Okay. Awa, this is another way of saying because. We'll get more into that in depth at another time. So past tense sa paye, le soa a Maria. So paye means lazy, and le soa a Maria is the person being lazy. So I hope you were able to get most of that. And if you were, you're improving a ton. If you weren't able to get everything, but you're able to get some things, good job. And I hope you weren't just, there was a couple concepts in here that you didn't fully understand, so you gave up. No, that's not the way you learn a language. There'll be a lot of times where you don't completely understand in the beginning of learning a language. And you need to use the stuff that you do know to try to put that puzzle together. And there'll still be some missing pieces here and there, but as you continue to work on the language and practice and speak and listen more, that you will be able to put more and more pieces together and work on that very well. So next time we're going to be working on when to use the tense marker E, the habitual tense. We can't use the habitual tense E with this sentence structure, so we are dedicating another video to that on how we use that tense marker E, because we still need to be able to use the non-past tense E or the habitual tense marker E in the descriptive sentence structure. So until next time, guys, tofa soifua.